I got in trouble with even Lando in Zandvoort last year when I said he was lucky to be this close. Literally the same thing applies to George right now. Maybe I'll get in trouble from George now.
Nothing broken in the car.
Okay, any more info?
Nothing broken.
So what is his biggest threat?
Right now, it seems like reliability is his biggest, his biggest threat.
I would say his biggest threat remains George.
JP, are you still banging the drum as well that they've got to support Hamilton over Leclerc?
I am.
I think back to 2017 when you flew that year. You were into Q3. You were faster than Nico Hülkenberg, your Renault teammate, in Q2.
Yep. I had him on
what
toast.
Do you need? You did, yeah. It's F1 Nation, I'm Tom Clarkson, and it's Belgian Grand Prix week, so let's look forward to it with former F1 driver Jolyon Palmer and IndyCar race winner James Hinchcliffe. Guys, how are you both, first of all? I mean, Hinch, why don't we start with you? You weren't at Silverstone. What did you make of it?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, what a weekend. I mean, that one's always one to look forward to, right? It's I think one of the races people circle on their calendar as an exciting one, and didn't disappoint. I mean, the sprint was exciting. The Grand Prix I thought was unbelievable. Like everybody, we would have loved to have seen that one lap shootout at the end, but what a result for Ferrari and for Charles, and lots of drama up and down the field. I thought it was a great race.
It was a real festival. We had 564,000 people there over the weekend. I mean, mental, actually, is one word you could use to describe it.
Well, I mean, I remember when that number was like 350, and that was only 3 years ago. I mean, the rate at which it's expanded that weekend is unreal.
Also, 350,000 that was a huge weekend. We were like,
that was that was the record. Yeah.
I remember when Melbourne hit 400,000 over the weekend a few years ago, and I think that took the record. And again, we were like 400,000 people are coming to watch Formula One over the course of a weekend. It's been blown out of the water by Silverstone. I mean, there are all loads of great venues, but the number at Silverstone was just ridiculous.
And that Charles Leclerc win, he's got his mojo back, hasn't he? But why don't we start, actually, with Kimi Antonelli, right? He was 66 points ahead after that brilliant win at Monaco. It's now down to 25 points over his teammate, George Russell. I mean, how worried should he be about the guy in the sister car?
I think he'll know how good George is, and I think he'll probably realise that George won't be at this level of performance all season. I think it would be natural for Kimi to expect a reaction at some point for George over the course of the season to start stringing results together. But at the same time, you look at Kimi's season and it's so difficult to fault him, really. He's obviously been very unlucky in 2 of the last 3 races. Actually, even in Austria, he was a bit unlucky with the yellow flag. So there's sort of mitigation for him having such a small points lead compared to George. George would say he was unlucky at the start of the year, but I feel like it's gone some and beyond to Kimi now, the bad luck. So he can think, yep, great, I've still got performance, that's all he needs to concentrate on. But you always would be, I think, in his position, have a niggling doubt of how long am I going to have this advantage over George for?
Yeah, I mean, you can never as a driver assume that the status quo will stay that way, right? I mean, this is Formula One. Everybody's pushing to the absolute nth degree. And, you know that every night George is going to bed thinking, all right, what do I have to do to wake up and be a better racing driver tomorrow? He's not just going to accept the fact that Kimi, up to this point, has been better. There's just, the numbers don't lie. And Jolyon, you and I spent the first 3-4 races being like, yeah, okay, it was a good race from Kimi, but, and yeah, we've seen this, but we're 8-9 races into the season now. It's getting a lot harder to try to make the case that George is going to outperform him over the course of a 22-23 race season.
The script is flipped, isn't it? Because now I feel like we're saying good race from George, but
right,
Kimi was quicker, or this or that. Silverstone, obviously, he did get very lucky. It's difficult to deny that. So literally, we're talking with the shoe on the other foot now. Kimi has asserted himself as the dominant driver at this stage of the season. And so George has to think about turning it around. I'm also, you guys, do you remember, I think it was Miami, or maybe it's just after Miami, where we had to bet our house or our year's earnings on one driver. I think me and you went for George.
We sure did. It's going to be a pretty lean Christmas.
Where's your money now, lads?
Kimi.
Kimi.
He's you can't say otherwise. He's doing too well, isn't he? The consistency of his high level of performance is extraordinary.
Part of it is when George does have a strong weekend, by the final third of the Grand Prix, Kimi's still faster. Whether he beats him or not, he's still faster. Even when George seems like he's really on it, at the end of the race, Kimi is still the faster car. And so it makes you, and it's been that way for so many different races now. It makes you, think it's hard to imagine a scenario where that's not going to be the case, at least in the short term.
So what is his biggest threat as we sit here coming up to sort of halfway in the season? Is his biggest threat himself in terms of tightening up as we get towards the business end of the year, or is the biggest threat reliability after the issues he's had, or is his biggest threat outside of Mercedes?
I would say his biggest threat remains George. I think the case study of last year is just unbelievably applicable to where we're at right now. George scrabbling results together in the middle part of the season. I got in trouble with even Lando in Zandvoort last year when I said he was lucky to be this close. Literally the same thing applies to George right now. Maybe I'll get in trouble from George now. But, they
all listen to the show, JP. They all listen to the show.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give him something at some point. But right now, he is fortunate to be 25 points away with his level of performance. But the case study showed last year, Lando found the pace at the end of the year and he put a run together and Oscar's form wasn't sustainable. I think that's the threat for Kimi. Obviously, he's been unlucky. You expect, as a driver, these things to give and take over the year. It already has done for Mercedes. Yeah, if his car keeps breaking down, he might not win the championship, but that's out of his control. So, it's just down to, for me, it's down to Russell finding his feet, putting in more of those Melbourne-style performances where he looks like George Russell of yesteryear again.
But you say finding his feet. I can't work out how he lost his footing. When you think of, as you say, where he was in Melbourne, where did it all go wrong? And I think there are parallels. Hinch, actually, JP and I discussed this last week. Do you think there are parallels between the season George Russell's having and the one that Charles Leclerc has had, well, at least up to Silverstone?
Yeah, I can see some of that, actually, because of what's happening, on the other side of the garage in both cases. And I'm kind of with you, TC. I'm not sure if George lost his footing or if Kimi just really solidly found his. I can't help but just look at the numbers and you watch on track. You see the attitude of the car. You see his aggression in wheel-to-wheel racing. It's it's hard to bet against him at this point. I do think that, right now it seems like reliability is his biggest threat, because without a big turnaround from George, I don't see it being from the other side of the garage. And then it brings up an interesting conversation.
You don't think George has got the turnaround in him?
Of course he does. I think that, look, last year we were saying that he was probably the second most complete driver on the grid, right? I mean, he had such a stellar year in a slightly underperforming car. It's a numbers game, right? When we get to this point in the season, right, we're a third of the way through the year now, and I think we can realistically point to 2 weekends, maybe 3, where George outperformed Kimi from start to finish. And I'm including Montreal as one of those 3 where we don't know how that race was going to end, right? At the time of George's failure, yes, he was leading, but he was under an insane amount of pressure from Kimi. They'd already, exchanged a lead a couple times. So I'm not sure he would have come out on that one, but I'll give him benefit of the doubt because he was leading when the car broke. But that's 3, right? So what's
the third one?
Australia, I'll give him China because he was quicker, I think, throughout at least the first part of the weekend. Again, in the Grand Prix itself, Kimi romped the field, right? And this is what I've been saying is even when George has a good Friday and Saturday, by Sunday afternoon, Kimi just seems to have a little bit more. And it's a numbers game. I'm playing the statistics. If this is last year, it's a different conversation, obviously. But George, for whatever reason, this car hasn't clicked in the same way that the last rule set didn't click with Lewis, and this one is. Which kind of goes back to TC's original question about, Charles and Lewis and, whether this is going to be a bit of a turning point weekend for Charles after what happened in Silverstone. I don't know the answer to that because Lewis is on great form too.
Something that is really interesting to me, looking at just the raw numbers of it. So George, in Q2 in China, has an issue. Yeah, I think he had the front wing dropping down at that point, and then he had a bigger issue into Q3, and he just got one lap to get on the front row, which it seemed like a great save. Up until that point, Q2 of China, he was ahead of Kimi almost every single lap they were out on track. The Grand Prix in Australia was close, but George had it absolutely under control. He was quicker in qualifying. Kimi had actually crashed in FP3 in Australia, trying to keep up with him.
JP, can I just chip in? I think that's a massive point you've just made. He crashed in FP3, only just got the car ready in time for qualifying. Kimi was on the back foot massively in Melbourne. You can't judge him on what happened in Melbourne because of that, I think.
Well, but he did crash in FP3 because he was also chasing it through Friday of Melbourne. He was chasing it a little bit, to my eyes, being out there at the testing. I felt like George was slightly more in sync with the car in Bahrain testing. Certainly the last one was where I was at, and I just felt like he had, you get that sense of every time Russell's in the car, the Mercedes just seems like it's too dominant. And when the other drivers in the car, like Checo and Max in recent years, you think Red Bull are up the road, and then Checo gets in and you think, oh, maybe they are beatable. It felt at times, I think Kimi also, to be fair, had a bit of an unlucky run in Bahrain testing, but I felt like George had it under control. Then also, guys, remember the sprint in China? George is on pole. Kimi actually crashed into Isaac Hadjar at turn 6 on the first lap, was a little bit lucky to get away with not bigger damage. So there were a couple of errors in there where you just felt like George was just striding out to early season dominance. Q1 in China, George is half a tenth up. Q2 in China, he has his issues, gets it going for the front row, doesn't win the race. He's barely been ahead on any given lap since. When you talk about Canada, he took pole. He got pole in Canada on the final throws of that qualifying where he was destined to be 7th if he didn't hook up that last lap. And it was a huge lap. It was great. But wow, he had to pull out something majestic. Whereas every lap Kimi does, it's pole, 2nd or 3rd. If George doesn't hook it up, he's 5th or 6th.
I feel like you're supporting my point here. I'm not sure.
I don't think I'm disagreeing. I'm just saying that was a turning point for me. It was interesting to me that moment in China. So what I'm thinking here is, was it a confidence game that you've got Kimi unlocking some level of? Well, he obviously got the race win, his first ever Grand Prix win. Then he went to Japan, and we always said at the time he was good in Japan. So he gets a couple of wins on the bounce. We have the big break. And is then George looking at the other side of the garage more? Is he stopping working in his normal way because of that? I don't have the answers particularly, but I just do think there was a huge turning of the tide in China for whatever reason, and that seems to have shifted the momentum.
I wonder whether George started overthinking it in that gap between Japan and Miami. As you say, starting to look at the other car. If we just had, those 2 races in the Middle East, as was on the original calendar, I wonder whether he would have got some momentum going. And I mean, you guys know far better than me, but you can, with all the data available now, you can go down a rabbit hole, can't you? And you just get completely lost with the amount of information, and you lose the ability to just be natural and react on instinct to what the car's doing, right?
Well, 100%. And sometimes it's so, with access to so much information and so much data, it's easy to, we use the term over-engineer the car. You can over-engineer the driver. As a driver, you can over-engineer yourself. There's such thing as too much information. I know there's this, kind of belief, or at least there was for a while, that the more hours you poured over data, the better a driver you were. And I think that there is a point where there's, a law of diminishing returns there. And you look at, I forget, Jolyon, was it Spain maybe that George said he sort of took a step back and was maybe looking less at the other car's data, kind of focusing more on his own. You had Hamilton say, look, I'm done with the sim. It's sending me down the wrong path. There were a couple examples of drivers actually taking a step back and focusing on, their process and what's worked for them in the past. And the results have kind of shown it has helped. So I do think there's a part of that. And in both of those cases, you had On George's side, obviously Kimi, on Lewis's side earlier, Charles was maybe outperforming him. So both these guys have done that. And now it's sort of switched on the Ferrari side. Now Charles saying, I had this point where I had to decide, do I pivot and try to do what Hamilton's doing, or do I focus on how I've always traditionally done it? He made the decision in Silverstone to do the latter, ends up with the victory. So I think there is something to this kind of back to basics and keep it simple, stupid in a sense, The
interesting thing is, as well, these cars are so complex from an engineering standpoint. The teams in Australia, they didn't even really know how to best set them up, best get the optimal energy deployment around the lap. Certainly a lot of them were still troubleshooting issues. So you get into these first run of races and everyone's still exploring. And it might be that George's early technique worked, but actually a little bit like Lewis then came to the fore and he's actually just adapted to find something that would have beaten Lewis of Melbourne if he goes back there. Maybe he's just got a better setup range. So then the other driver has to think, okay, what was working for me needs to change again. And it is difficult because everyone has their own, the nuance of driving styles are different across teammates, whether it's the Ferrari guys or the Mercedes guys. The setup range that suddenly unlocks for Hamilton might not work for Leclerc. What suddenly works for Antonelli might not work for Russell, but the trend is probably the same. You just have to find your way of finding it. And that's a level of complexity that I think is still probably unraveling.
I was staggered at Silverstone at the improvement in the deployment from the sprint on Saturday to the Grand Prix on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, just compare and contrast. Yeah. But so they're still learning, but my goodness, they're learning quickly, aren't they? The difference overnight was extraordinary, particularly how much better Ferrari were relative to Mercedes on Sunday.
They could fight, couldn't they? And when you also look at Leclerc, we spoke about it after the race at Silverstone, but Leclerc, with his whatever he changed on the setup Friday into Saturday, not only gave him confidence to attack again without the car snapping, but then when you are attacking, you're not wasting energy with little snaps and hesitations on the throttle. So on a circuit like Silverstone, it'll probably be the same at Spa, where you are quite a lot limited with energy deployment. You're quicker through the corners, you get more rewarded on the straights, and the benefits become kind of more exaggerated than they might have been last year.
This episode is sponsored by Lisa. If you're a regular listener, you'll probably remember me talking about finally upgrading our old mattress a few episodes back. Well, now that I've had the Lisa Sapira Hybrid for a while, I can honestly say it's one of those things where you wonder why you didn't do it sooner. Lisa has a whole range of mattresses designed around how you sleep, because what works for one person isn't always right for someone else. I knew I wanted something that gave me plenty of support without compromising on comfort, so I took Lisa's online sleep quiz. It only took a couple of minutes, asked me about things like my sleep position and preferred firmness, and recommended the Sapira Hybrid. And honestly, what a difference it's made. From the very first night, I slept right through and woke up feeling more refreshed than I had in a long time. It gives me all the support I was looking for, but it's still incredibly comfortable. I genuinely hadn't realised just how much difference the right mattress can make. Lisa mattresses are designed and assembled in the USA, and it's no surprise they've been awarded Best Hybrid and Best Memory Foam mattresses by the New York Times Wirecutter. Plus, they make the whole process really straightforward with free shipping, easy returns, and a 120-night sleep trial. So go to lisa.com for 25% off select mattresses, plus get an extra $50 off with the promo code NATION, exclusive for our listeners. That's Lisa, LEESA.com, promo code NATION for 25% off select mattresses, plus an extra $50 off. And when you use our code, you're supporting our show. Lisa.com, promo code NATION. Let's talk about Ferrari some more. They've won 2 of the last 3 races. Hamilton and Leclerc have stood on the top step. Leclerc, his long winless streak of 624 days is over. Do you think they can both challenge Mercedes now, or do you think it was a set of circumstances that came together at Silverstone? And as we go to Spa, Mercedes are firm favourites again?
I think, yes, going to Spa, certainly Mercedes are the firm favorites. And, to a certain extent, fortune did favor them in Silverstone. Kimi's issues, I think, were not insignificant and definitely played a part in how that one played out. Ultimately, you know, Charles did a remarkable job. Ferrari did a remarkable job. I don't think we were even expecting them to be quite as close there as they were. Just like Spain, it's kind of been a bit backwards. But I think that ultimately Mercedes still has the upper hand. I think if they can stay on top of reliability issues and strategy issues and things like that, they've got two great drivers. They've got a great car. They've got a great power unit. I think they definitely head to Belgium as the favorites. Ferrari, as much as I hate this philosophy, you know, in theory, if they have any chance of this, I think they do have to back one. And right now, with the gap between Charles and Lewis, you would have to back Lewis. And luckily, Charles fast enough. You know, you go back to last year, and it was Max versus both McLarens, right? They were taking points off each other, which helped his cause. But he didn't have a teammate that could help run interference and take points off both of them as well. In Ferrari's case right now, they do. They've got two drivers that are performing at a very high level. And if they do decide to do what we know Ferrari have no issue doing and have done plenty times in the past, that is their best shot. It's still a long shot, but it is their best shot.
I mean, Hinch, JP was banging this drum a couple of weeks ago on the show, wasn't he? But the gap now is only 39 points between the two Ferrari drivers. Leclerc is only 71 points. I mean, I say only, but we've still got a long way to go. I'm now coming down on that they've got to keep it open. I mean, JP, are you still banging the drum as well that they've got to support Hamilton over Leclerc?
I am, because I agree with Hinch. I think it was impressive that they were as competitive as they were at Silverstone. I think it bodes really well for them to be competitive across a bigger range of tracks. But still, you look at Spa and you think Mercedes will have the upper hand. I thought it was great that Leclerc was fast. It was brilliant for him and his confidence that he won the race. It was fascinating for me to see when Ferrari won this time, especially at the start of the race, it was two Ferraris at the front versus one Mercedes. When you look at Barcelona, it was two Mercedes and one Ferrari. And Leclerc wasn't there for the race. He obviously crashed in qualifying, but didn't quite have the pace or the consistency at that moment. So having him in the fight is obviously brilliant.
Do you think there was any thought in Fred Vasseur's mind when they were running 1-2 at Silverstone, right, I'm going to have to swap them? I don't even think he's entertaining it.
But that's not to say it's not the right thing, TC, but I don't think there would be. So there's two levels to this. Number one, I don't think it's about to happen. They have signed Leclerc on a long-term deal. They obviously need to keep him happy. He's just won a race. And he's going to be saying, I'm only 39 points behind Lewis. I can still win this, even if it seems very unlikely. But when you look at it, and I was actually wondering this in the Grand Prix, there was quite a big time gap between them when they were 1-2 before the safety car came out. And I was thinking, if they were to swap the positions, it would be really... I wouldn't expect them to do it. Leclerc had done everything right. He was a bit too quick for Lewis on Sunday. The gap was huge. It wasn't like they were line astern. And it is still quite early in the season, so I didn't expect them to do it. But I thought if they did, Hamilton right now would be 22 points behind Antonelli in the championship. He'd be, I think, 6 points up on George Russell, assuming then they don't pit under the safety car and it finishes 1-2. And if I was Antonelli and you've got Leclerc now working for Hamilton, and Hamilton is 22 points behind, the conversation we started this podcast with what would be the bigger threat, I think it would be Hamilton and Ferrari. I think it's that big a difference. Whether or not Fred can actually orchestrate that with two ambitious drivers, that's the second part of the question, and that's a tricky one to do. But logically, if I was the boss and I had the minerals, which I don't even know if I do, but I would say Hamilton's the guy. We'll give Charles Leclerc some payback another time.
It's, what are we? We're 2 races until the summer break now. I mean, you feel that decisions like that might start getting taken around the summer break, but I'm now starting to agree with you, JP, in that if you're going to make the decision at the summer break, why not make it now after 9 races instead of 11, right?
You just pile on the pressure. So 22 points now could become 15 points, and you enter the summer break, right on a par. You're all pulling on the same team. Tough on Charles, but he will still get chances to win because it's not every time he'll be with Lewis right behind him. And he's there for the long term. It will bounce back.
Both of you, how do you break news like that to a racing driver? The bad news. Is it just a phone call? Is it a, look, if you're winning and Lewis is P2 and we swap you, don't worry, you'll still get your win bonus? Do you just talk in monetary terms because that's the language they understand best? Or
no, these guys are making so much money on their contracts. I don't think they're too fussed about the win bonus, right? It's the win. I mean, taking away a win, swapping third and fourth is one thing. Asking a driver to sacrifice a Grand Prix win, that's a very, very different conversation and a very difficult thing to do. I think, I don't know, JP, I don't know if you've ever been in that position, but it's you'd want it to be an in-person conversation, not a phone call.
Definitely,
and you'd want it to be, if the situation was reversed, we'd be doing the same for you. And if we find ourselves in that position in the future, you will get the same treatment. I think, and then you have to just take the team at their word, right? But I think that's the best way to do it.
It's obviously a really, really tricky one to do, which is why I don't expect them to actually do it. But yeah, you just have to. The payback will surely come for the driver that is helping out at some point. And it's not to say every race. It's only in specific scenarios where, whilst it looks like you have a chance to pile on pressure on Mercedes, that's the case.
History would suggest otherwise, JP. I'm just thinking of Schumacher and Barrichello. You say, okay, well, surely, roles get reversed. No, they didn't, ever.
Schumacher's a better quality of driver than Barrichello.
Right. And then you've got
Here, I'll throw you... Well, hold on. I'll throw you a slight caveat, because you're right. That's the driver rankings across that example to what we're talking about. It's not the same. But when Schumacher was totally out of it in '99 after he came back from his leg break, he played the supporting role to Irvine to try to win the championship, and they nearly did it. But he gave up points and gave up wins so that Eddie could have a crack at taking a title.
And now you've got a great memory, mate. You've got a great memory. That Malaysian Grand Prix '99, I remember it. Yeah, it was the most brilliant number 2 drive I think I've ever seen in Formula One. The way Schumacher held up, sort of backed everyone else up. Good point.
Imagine being 19-year-old Kimi Antonelli and having to deal with that coming from Ferrari. They've got nothing to lose. They can give it absolutely their best shot. I think it would unsettle you a lot. And you've got a slightly fragile car. You've got a teammate that really wants to beat you. So there's absolutely no chance Mercedes are pulling together. I think it makes sense. Also, the fact that Leclerc has now actually won a race is a great thing for him. And I think without him having a win, obviously, is a harder ask. But now he's got that win, maybe it'll be better. I still don't, like I said, I don't think it's going to happen. But all your examples you're about to reel off there, TC, I think you're going to say Coulthard and Hakkinen?
I am going to say
Massa and Alonso? Yeah. They're all different caliber of drivers.
Yeah, and remember that with the Irvine-Schumacher thing, it took for Schumacher to break his leg at Silverstone for that brilliant bit of help that he gave Irvine towards the end of the year that never quite paid off when it came to the championship. But I worry for Charles that you go and, the car is good this year. Maybe by the end of the year it could be on a par with the Mercedes. This is your chance, and you've just got to... Must be incredibly demoralising that if you look at the Barrichellos and the Coulthards, I don't think they ever quite got over it.
They were never a good enough driver to do it, though, were they? On average, they were both great drivers, but when you're alongside Michael Schumacher or Mika Hakkinen, the same with Massa and Alonso. Whereas I do think Leclerc is a potential champion in the right time. I think he's shown very well against Lewis across their year and a half. I think he will get his moment.
All right. Well, guys, why don't we talk about Spa, the challenge of Spa? And I think, JP, you're the man to talk us through it, because I think back to 2017 when you flew that year. You were into Q3, and you were faster than Nico Hülkenberg, your Renault teammate, in Q2.
Yep. I had him on
what
toast.
Do you need? You did, yeah. So what's the secret?
I actually wasn't great at Spa, but that weekend, for some reason, I just found the flow, and it's so much about a flow and a rhythm through. The middle sector is the key to it. So the first sector is long straights, it's La Source, and that's it. Middle sectors where you've just got to find a rhythm. There's not really corners where you've got your obvious reference markers. It's a bit more like a high-speed open Suzuka in that sort of regard. Loads of corners, all intertwined. You need to have confidence in the car. You need to have a stable rear end so you can really lean on it and attack. And then you're on to a run up to the bus stop where you've just got to have confidence that the car's going to stop when you smash the brakes at about 100 meters. That weekend in 2017 I was the 7th fastest driver, but my blooming gearbox packed in Q3. So my Q2 time would have still stood me in 7th. But I'm glad you remember it, TC, because many don't. It's
like it
two
was
big moments, isn't it? Yeah. Malaysia 99, Palmer's qualifying in 2017. It's all rushing back now.
It's one of those tracks that's a bucket list track for every driver. I've never had the privilege of getting to do a lap around Spa, but it's top of the list. You know, I've now got to drive around Suzuka. That was the other one. But yeah, both of those tracks are just so special. And I think, you ask racing drivers globally, Spa's going to come up in the top 3, I think, well, more often than not. That's a 90% of drivers, I think, would put Spa in the top 3. And such a special place, such an old school place, so much character. You know, like JP said, you've got sector 1 and 3 kind of just determined by straight line speed and braking performance. But then that middle sector is just, I mean, it's poetic. It's art. It's such a beautiful racetrack.
It feels like driving a lap of Spa is like an adventure. You feel like you're going so far away, up into the trees, up the Kemmel Straight. The elevation change is huge. The cornering is so different as you then come down the hill in that middle sector. You sometimes get pockets of rain on some parts of the track and not others. You can overtake. Your heart's thumping as you're coming back towards the bus stop, trying to finish the lap. It is a great lap.
JP, you've been known to be our resident weather expert. What is the long range forecast for Spa?
So I can guarantee you a chance of rain, TC, for either Friday or Saturday or Sunday of Belgium. Yes. Could be all 3. That's what I can guarantee you, because by the way, it's the Belgian Grand Prix and it always rains there at some point.
Hire this man.
My expert weather app right now says beautiful week in Belgium, which comes to an end on Thursday where it gets unsettled. Quelle surprise. That's when Formula One rocks in.
Now, look, one guy we haven't spoken about, who's a 3-time winner at Spa, and a lot of the grandstands are orange because his fans travel all over Europe to support him, is of course, look, Max Verstappen. He must be in a difficult place going to Spa. It's the last 2 races have been hard for him. Guys, what's your take on Red Bull and Spa?
I would have said on paper they have a chance at Spa based on where they've been the last couple of weekends. So Max had power unit issues at Silverstone. It was clear in the data. So they'd need to fix that, obviously, because it's a really power-sensitive circuit. With that in place, I think he should have been, not with the Mercedes and Ferraris, but not far away at all. And when you see the job he was doing in 3rd, it really could have been way more competitive. But obviously the bigger picture here now for Max is that rear wing, because that's partly the package that's finding them performance. But now in the last 2 weekends, it's found him in the gravel or the wool. So the one track you wouldn't want to go to with a rear wing that you can't be confident of getting the closure properly is Spa, because you have so many viciously fast approaches. Well, they have straight mode enabled, and when you turn into Pouhon, you want to know that rear is going to stick. And if you're not sure, you are in big trouble.
Why do you think he's had the crashes and Isaac Hadjar hasn't? Is it because they do something different under braking it's always happening in fast corners, isn't it?
No, that has to be luck of the draw, I would think. I can't imagine there's, any development parts that are happening on that car that's not happening on Hadjar as well. And look, as a driver, you have to just sort of have blind faith that the car is bolted together right and is going to last. You can't have that lingering in the back of your head that, what happens if? And I think he'll be able to do that. We've all been there. When you're on the racetrack, those things just don't exist in your mind. They can't, because a failure can happen at any point. Mechanical issues are a part of the sport. Human error is a part of the sport. And so drivers have this, unique ability to put the self-preservation gene in the locker and keep your foot stuck in. So I think that's the mentality Max has to have. Yes, after the fact, you can be frustrated. You can sit with the team. You can do the post-mortem, try to figure out what happened and how to prevent it from happening again. But when you're out on the racetrack, you cannot let it affect you. And I don't believe that he will. I don't think he's going to have any reservations because luckily the cars are safe, the tracks are safe, and the risk of anything properly going wrong is still quite low.
You talk about his mentality, right? Max's mentality. I haven't seen him as upset as he was after Silverstone in a long, long time. It makes me wonder how crucial these next two races, Spa, Hungary, are. Just A, for his championship challenge, or are we already writing that off? But the championship challenge, but also his sort of longer term future.
Championship challenge is gone. I'm writing that off.
Agreed.
I'll look stupid probably in Abu Dhabi when he does it again, and we'll all say, oh, he's shown it last year. But come on, there's no chance he's going to be having a championship challenge this year. So then it's just about him believing in the future of the team. There's a lot of people leaving that team. We've spoken about it at length already through this year. GP's a big one that's going. Everyone, all the major big cogs that were there through his championship winning years, they're kind of not really there anymore. So Laurent Mekies has got to convince Max that we are still here to win the championship in the next few years. He is obviously going to want to see a weekend where he's not backwards into the barriers or the gravel at high speed. He's going to want to see performance, like actually in Austria, where he can challenge for a race win again and see upgrades hitting the car and working. And then I think he'll be in a much better position for the summer break. But until you have that, obviously he's going to be frustrated because he's a driver that signs up to win, and anything less than that is not great.
Are there any positives to come out of the sort of exodus from Red Bull? Now, that seems a bizarre thing to say, I know, but if you're Laurent Mekies, is it actually long-term easier not to have the people who've been there for 20 years who tell you in every debrief, this is how we used to do it? Is it actually easier for him to be able to promote from within, get his own people in the right positions to sort of do it the Laurent Mekies way, not the Christian Horner way?
I think part of it is it affords you the opportunity to see, what other talent you do have in the team. Because if the old guard stays, they're not going anywhere in terms of, it's tough to promote internally, right? When this top level has been there for so long and had all this success. So as a team, you end up identifying, nurturing, breeding these new what engineers, strategists, whatever it is, and then eventually all that hard work is for nothing because they go somewhere else because they see that there's a ceiling where they're at because Jonathan Wheatley's still there and GP's still there and Paul Monahan's still there and all these things. So what it does do is it allows Laurent to look within the team and try to identify that next generation, because for all you know, the next Adrian Newey is at the team and has been for 5 years, but was never allowed to sort of step up and really show what they've got. Whether or not that pipeline does exist in the team, we'll find out. So it's a double-edged sword, right? You've got a winning recipe. You've got if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They were winning championships. They're performing well. That's now gone. And so you have to look at the other side, which is it creates this opportunity to find the next one.
Well, and talking of the next one, I find it interesting that Mark Mateschitz, son of the late great founder Dietrich Mateschitz, founder of Red Bull, was at the Red Bull Ring. He was then at Silverstone 7 days later with Oliver Mintzlaff, who's now in charge of all things Red Bull on a day-to-day basis. Now, we never used to see Dietrich at a race apart from at the Red Bull Ring. So we're already seeing Mark at more races, taking more of an interest, more of a hands-on role. So it is a changing of the guard. And I just wonder whether out with the old, in with the new, purely on a Milton Keynes basis is a good thing. And I think maybe Max can see that, and that are they now. The word I'm getting from Red Bull is that he's, even though technically he can walk in terms of contract clauses and things, he's going to stay for 2027 and stick with it and see where they go.
He's not actually flush with options, it seems, which is strange for someone that pretty much the entire paddock regards as the best driver. But
Hinch, when you were in mid-Ohio, everyone was getting very excited over here because there was this breaking news. and all this talk about Max Verstappen to McLaren. Oh my God, is this really going to happen? It was actually IndyCar news, wasn't it? Nothing to do with Max Verstappen. Yeah.
It was
big
not.
McLaren
It was big
signing.
McLaren news. Yeah. Scott Dixon and Felix Rosenquist going over, but slightly different. But I mean, that's really to Jolyon's point. He doesn't have a lot of options. You've got Kimi and George, both Mercedes born and bred. They're dominating. There's no reason that they would want to leave necessarily at the moment. No real reason for anyone to get rid of them. Ferrari, Lewis was kind of the question mark there at the end of last year. Well, that's not a question anymore. He's going to be there for a minute. McLaren, Lando's, again, born and raised McLaren driver, said to you, he'd like to end his career there, but maybe for one other team. But realistically, you could see him being a lifer at McLaren. Oscar Piastri was the only sort of question mark, and it would kind of be, I think it was accepted, it would kind of be a straight swap in a sense. Piastri to Red Bull, Verstappen to McLaren. But again, I think that McLaren is not in the position they were 12 months ago, 24 months ago. So it's less appealing for Max. They didn't have a particularly strong weekend in Silverstone either. He just has so much history there, and you have to have some faith that they can get it back, especially if he's there helping steer the ship, because he's one of the few of the old guard that's still around. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he announces that he's not just staying, but staying for the long term.
Oscar and George seem to be the two guys who might yet change things. Kind of for a similar reason, really. You had Oscar so close to the championship last year. Lando got it, and then it feels like Lando's carried that momentum into this season as well. George, if he doesn't win the championship or if he doesn't manage to find some form, is he going to start to think that this is Kimi's team? And we've heard some quite terse radio messages between him and Toto now.
But where does he go? Because if Max isn't going to leave, George can't go anywhere.
No, it's
right?
Max.
So it's really all dependent on Max leaving. So Max and George have to get together and be like, hey, are you unhappy? Because I'm unhappy. You want to do a little deal here? Because otherwise...
That's how it goes, doesn't it, though? But yeah. Max, it's only if Max goes to either McLaren or to Mercedes, there's a great vacancy at Red Bull, and that would then become an option. The only thing I see with Mercedes, if George were to leave and decide he wants to start afresh somewhere else, which is a big if, does Toto Wolff want to partner your now great talent Kimi Antonelli with Max Verstappen?
You do not.
That feels like it's a recipe for disaster now. And Kimi, I think, has proven he's a number one driver. He's not about to come in and play second fiddle. So I think Kimi's almost upped his level to a point that if George goes, Max is not the ideal replacement anymore.
Yeah, you say recipe for disaster, but absolute box office for us. Can you
I'd
imagine?
love it.
Kim? Yeah.
I'd love it. Also, I have to say, I am actually quite impressed with Red Bull, given how many people have left over the years now. They have got a good car. They've started a power unit project from scratch. That's been deemed to be the strongest ICE, internal combustion engine of the field. How great is that? Their deployment isn't quite there, so their overall straight line speed isn't amazing. But given how many people have left, given they've got a rookie driver in the car, not a rookie driver, but a new driver in the team who is a second-year driver, I actually think they're doing well to be this competitive at this stage. And the upgrades they have bought are actually pretty tidy, apart from not always working.
And they developed so late into last year that they were on the back foot coming into 26. So they've done everything you've just said on the back of developing really late into 2025. So
that's their argument to convince Max to stay, isn't it? That, look, hey, we're actually doing pretty well considering, and the trajectory then is going to be championship contenders again.
Let's talk some more about McLaren. Last year's Belgian Grand Prix winner, Oscar Piastri. I mean, P11 at Silverstone. Do you think it's going to go any better for either of them in Belgium?
I think it should. Again, I would say the track should suit them a little more, but they are still struggling with their straight line speed, whether it's deployment, whether it's drag, compared to Mercedes. So on that count, Spa's not going to be great. But the drivers have shown good form there in the past. I think they shouldn't be less competitive than they were at Silverstone, put it that way. Obviously, Oscar had his mystery front wing issue on the first lap, so that was why he didn't get any points. Lando's pace was okay. He was quicker than Isaac Hadjar in the race, so that's encouraging. But
Andrea Stella, the team principal of McLaren, said that they overperformed to get that P4. That wasn't the pace of the car.
Yeah, in the same way as everyone overperformed really to finish where they did, because Kimi dropped down, you had Max spin off. So basically reliability got them there for other people's issues. They actually could have had the third place if the race was restarted as well, which would have been an amazing result for them. And Lando definitely overperformed in the sprint. So I actually think whilst the car's not great, he's driving at a very high level at the moment. And so I hope that they can be closer, but I just don't see them challenging for the win, and a podium's a long shot if the others aren't quick enough.
Let's throw it further back to a team that I think has done a phenomenal job in the last 5 races, and that's Racing Bulls. You know, that battle for P5 in the Constructors' Championship between Alpine and them is really heating up. Just 1 point between them. And you've got to say that Racing Bulls have got the faster car. Liam Lawson, one of the unsung heroes, I feel, of 2026 as well. Any reason to think they can't get another double points finish this coming weekend?
I don't think so. I mean, the form they've been on, unless we hear, Alpine did bring some upgrades to Austria, I believe, that didn't quite hit the way they were hoping. So if those can continue to be developed and tweaked, maybe they'll get, a bit more pace out of that car. But, Gasly himself's been doing great. Colapinto's been kind of hot and cold, but with Racing Bulls, Lawson, I think, has had a really stellar, consistent, solid season. And then Lindblad, for a rookie to come in and be right on his gearbox, really. I mean, they seem to just kind of be one position apart, whether it's qualifying the race, whatever it is. But to be on this run of consecutive double points finishes for that team, they are well and truly asserting themselves as best of the rest. And yeah, I can't help but think that they're going to leave Belgium with 5th in the Constructors.
Couple of things with Racing Bulls. So I spoke to Arvid on Thursday of Silverstone. I said, if I could give you 9th place, are you taking it for the Grand Prix? And he said, absolutely I am. That's good points. He ended up getting 7th. So, he still wants the points, but actually it was even better than he would have taken for the race. I also spoke to Alan Permain on the grid on Sunday. They obviously were starting in the top 10. I said, is this going to be a straightforward race for double points? And he was kind of like, yeah, it should be. There's not even the element of playing it down now. They know they have the 5th best car. They're consistently there. He knows that he's got 2 drivers that are actually putting it together week in, week out. I don't see it changing for Spa. They bought an upgrade package a few races ago, and since then, they are the 5th best team with a bit of distance.
Is there any chance, though, that those 2 guys are going to start tripping over each other like they almost did in at the Red Bull Ring? I wonder whether that's going to be the Achilles heel going forward for them. Because both are sort of fighting for their careers, aren't they? Because there's a guy, a Red Bull junior, Nikola Solov, winning races in F2, in fact, dominating F2 at the minute. People are saying, has he already got a deal with Racing Bulls for next year? So if Lawson and Lindblad are fighting for, 1 seat, it could get pretty spicy there, and that could end up taking points away, right?
I quite enjoy the drama of it in the midfield, because we've seen now for a couple of races. So in Austria, you had a team orders moment where Lindblad overtook Lawson, and then Lawson wasn't happy about it, and they undercut Lindblad back, basically, with the strategy to right the wrong. And then I loved in Silverstone the early laps where Arvid got on the radio and said, you got to tell Liam to speed up. He's going too slow. Just little bits of needle between 2 drivers who are desperate to show that they're the better one. Obviously, Lawson's got the points on the board at the moment. He's driving so well. Lindblad, for a rookie, is doing great. But you have got Solov putting a huge run together in F2. And if he wins it as a Red Bull Junior, what does he do next? So that is always the pressure there.
It seems really unfair to drop Lawson or Lindblad after the first 9 races of what we've seen in the first 9 races this year, don't you think?
Unfair to not put the F2 champion in a Formula 1, though, no?
Well, I mean, I feel like we've seen that before, and it worked out all right. I mean, Oscar Piastri's doing just fine. It's there's only 22 seats, right? You can't always just assume that the F2 champ gets the promotion. It's just, I find it so funny because I feel like you turn back the clock 12 months and Red Bull was out of drivers we were trying to figure out how they were going to fill seats, who was going to be in the second Red Bull seat, who was going to go where. Thank God Lindblad was there, in F2 last year, and that he's performing the way that he is. But there was a moment where they just burned through everybody, and we're like, wow, their pipeline's not actually as strong as it used to be. And now all of a sudden they've got too many drivers that are performing, because Hadjar's doing a great job next to Max. Both the Racing Bulls guys are doing well, and you've got one of their juniors, in a good position to maybe win the F2 championship.
Look, guys, if Racing Bulls are doing a great job, everything they seem to put on that car is working. Can we talk about Williams now? And specifically some quotes that Carlos Sainz came up with after the race at Silverstone, where he was saying, he's frustrated. Concerned was another word he used, because they put a new front wing on the FW48 at Silverstone, and they just didn't get the results that they were expecting. There's a big B-spec car due for Baku in September. Is it as bad as Carlos is making out? Is he sort of putting pressure on them because he realizes that he actually doesn't have many options if he wanted to go anywhere else?
On everything, really, they're underperforming. They have the power unit that's winning the championship. Everyone else is doing an all right job with that power unit. It seems to be the class of the field in terms of your combination of electric power and combustion engine. Alpine have risen to the front in their first year with that. Williams have had an old partnership with Mercedes. That is no excuse. That is also partly why Carlos went to Williams when he had offers from Alpine, from Audi. He's a driver in demand. He's a race winner. He's a seriously intelligent guy that's trying to be a leader in the team. And he's just getting nowhere with them. The upgrades, I remember James Vowles in Miami was saying, we've basically fixed the car. On paper, we just need to then bring the parts to the car, and we'll see the performance come. We're down to weight on paper, great, but we need to put the parts on the car when the cost cap allows, and we'll get there. So then they bring upgrades, and they're still languishing with two drivers that should be fighting for points every week or better. I'm just so disappointed in Williams. You'd have thought they'd at least be able to upgrade it quickly, and by the summer they'd be back in towards the midfield, but they're actually not really getting much closer on the whole. They obviously have the odd weekend where they're able to wrangle a point or two, but I think if you're Sainz and if you're Albon, you're miffed with this, because everything should be in place to put this together, and it's just not coming for them.
And the long straights of Spa will make no difference, right?
Well, it should help. But, Spa and Silverstone aren't massively different now, because Silverstone is similar power sensitive now, is similarly difficult on energy deployment. Spa's more in that direction. The cornering profiles are slightly similar. You got sort of long, fast corners, a little bit like Barcelona. Doesn't seem to be great for Williams. So they were actually pretty solid in Monaco, where you had tight, low-speed, short radius corners, but the long, fast stuff is they're hauling still some weight around with not enough downforce.
So if you were Williams, if you were James Vowles making this decision, would you be spending that money on a B-spec car for Baku, or would you just write it off?
I feel like it's so early in a rule cycle that you're learning so much on the racetrack, right? So I think it's a little bit different than, say, the position they were in last year, where, are you going to spend money to develop a car where, none of these developments are going to transfer to next year, and they made that decision early to pivot everything to 26. I still think that for where we are in this rule set, there's a lot to be learned, and testing is so limited. Your wind tunnel time is limited. Your CFD runs are limited. All these things are limited. The racetrack is a test bed. You can go now with the mentality of, okay, we're writing off the year in terms of, hoping for XYZ result, and really just use these weekends to develop and start getting the philosophies and the setup direction that we need to start making the 27 car.
But it's not good enough, is it? Because they've been doing this for the 26 car for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So just to say, guys, don't worry, we're going to do 27 instead. Bore off. You said that about this year, and we're rubbish. I think if you're a driver, you want to get performance on the car and see something tangible, not just the hope of next year being right and wait and wait and wait. Aston Martin they look shambolic at the moment, Aston Martin. This upgraded package that I think is coming for Budapest and then some Honda upgrades post summer break, hopefully will deliver a huge amount. It's obviously that's the direction they've taken, and they're you can understand their position a little bit more than Williams because they have no chance to score. But I just think as a driver, especially with Williams, if they brought a few tenths to the car, they could fight again in the midfield. Put it on the car. Let's see it.
Come on then, what are our predictions? Who wants to go first? Probably not me, because I said Max was going to win the British Grand Prix and he ended up in a gravel trap.
I'm going to say that George wins in Belgium. He's had a few good races there in the past. He had a great drive in the wet for Williams in 21 that got him that sort of podium. So I'm going to say somehow George wins. I don't know how, but I think it's a rear guard drive.
But JP, how? Given everything we've said in this pod about the rise and rise of Kimi Antonelli, where is suddenly the win for George Russell coming from?
So I don't
Kimi
really
Antonelli
know.
retires.
TC.
Is that what happens?
No,
because he really wants to win his house back.
I'm under pressure here. Right, so every bit of logic says that Kimi will go there and just be quicker because he's been quicker for a long time. I don't know. I just feel something in the air. There's going to be a great tussle between the two Mercedes. I think George has got potential to be closer in qualifying. We've actually seen him do some good qualifying performances. And then the overtake mode will be really powerful in the race. It could be a bit more like a Montreal-style race where if you can stay within a second, you get constant chances to overtake, a big fight. And then maybe I'm just hopeful on George's part that he can get back on top of it. But look, logic says Kimi, but I'm gonna say, for the sake of a bold ambition here, George Russell wins the race.
From
Kimi.
From
Lewis.
Okay. Hinch.
Kimi, George, Lewis. For all the reasons that you just said Kimi should win, I'm gonna go. You're gonna
stick
Kimi.
to that, yeah.
I'm gonna stick to it. I agree with you that George is gonna have his weekends, but just the way the racing gods work, Kimi's had a rough run of luck. I think it's gonna be a straightforward weekend for him, clean, consistent, and quick as he has been. So I think Mercedes will have enough of an advantage that Ferrari will be thereabouts, but not in the mix for the win. So for me, it's Kimi, George, Lewis.
Just these predictions. This is all based on a dry race, right? Do the predictions change if we get what the weatherman said earlier? The rain's coming in on Sunday. Would it be any different? Would that bring a Ferrari with their great chassis?
Yeah, it easily could, actually. I think, on the one hand, the chassis, the power unit performance would be way less relevant. Everything we've said would be out of the window in terms of your energy management, all of that, because you're on full throttle way less. You're on full throttle later. You need downforce in the wet. The only thing is Ferrari have had a long time without wet weather performance. Obviously, the regs are completely different now. On paper, you'd say Ferrari should have a chance in the wet, but I don't know if their design philosophies haven't worked out over multiple rule sets with that.
Okay.
Go on, TC. I've got to press you for a prediction here. You delayed.
Well, I'm actually going to go with the man Hinch. I think it's Kimi Antonelli. I'd love George to get it together, but I think it's going to be Kimi. It's going to be a Mercedes 1-2 if it's dry. Kimi from George. I think there's going to be 7 seconds between them at the flag, and then I think. Is that
very precise? Very precise.
No, just the precision of it. Yeah. I didn't realize we had to give gaps as well.
And actually, I think
he'll complete the race in 1 hour, 42 minutes and 37 seconds.
And I think we could see Charles Leclerc on the podium again. He's a sort of Spa specialist. Look at everything he did in the junior formulas. He got his first ever Grand Prix win, of course, back in 2019 at Spa as well.
Yeah,
on a bit of a roll. So it's Kimi, George, Charles for me.
Interestingly, this was Kimi's, I would say it was his nadir last year, wasn't it?
True.
It was his lowest ebb of last season. So if your predictions are right and he turns it round, that'll be full circle. Him at Spa, year on year, rolling away with the championship.
There we go. Well, guys, thank you both very much. Great to chat. So, JP, I'll see you at Spa, will I?
I will see you then.
See you at Spa. And Hinch, you're back for Hungary, aren't you?
Yeah, we'll see you guys in Budapest.
All right. Guys, thank you both very much. And F1 Nation will, of course, return next Monday, where we'll see if any of our predictions come true. Now, in the meantime, why not listen to F1 legend Giancarlo Fisichella on F1 Beyond the Grid? He talks about his countryman Kimi, and you won't be surprised to know that he's a big fan, and his former teammate Fernando Alonso and one-time rival Lewis Hamilton as well. So that's F1 Beyond the Grid. And on the latest episode of F1 Explains, 1996 world champion Damon Hill joins Christian Hugel on the Silverstone stage to answer your questions about Formula One. That's it for now. Thanks very much for listening. F1 Nation is produced by Formula One and Audio Boom Studios.